All right, hi everyone. I am Ben Sanguinetti, and this is my good friend Nate Jones, and welcome back to another episode of Journey On the podcast. As always, we are here to share our amazing, beautiful experiences with all of you because life is a journey, and we all just need to have a little bit more fun. We have a really cool episode again today. We are going on another epic journey, and I am going over two very cool past lives. And before we do that, I'm going to give it back to my good friend Nate here, and we're going to do a little check-in.
All right, thanks, Ben. Okay, so just a few minutes. Just kind of quiet down and just allow yourself that to be here in the present moment. So if you want to close your eyes, close your eyes. You can keep your eyes open, if you're doing something. But just take your awareness to your breath. So just take your attention to your breath. And just take in a few conscious breaths. And that just means to breathe on purpose. And then don't rush the breath. Just very patiently go to the end of the breath. And then very patiently turn one breath into the next breath. And if you're sitting, eyes closed, just breathing, just notice if the body is kind of relaxing a little bit more, if there is a little bit more feeling of harmony. And then if you're doing something and breathing, just notice if what you're doing is affecting the quality with which you're doing what you're doing. So is there like a little bit more smoothness into the actions of what you're doing? Very nice. And being present, it really enhances the quality of everything we do. The quality that you could say is just simply the amount of attention that you have on what you're doing. And our attention is only where our mind is. So as you know, you could be doing something and be completely unaware of what you're doing because you're thinking about something else. And that's kind of the most fundamental practice, is just to notice when you're distracted and then come back to what you're doing, right? Take a breath possibly. Notice what you're looking at. Notice the sounds you're hearing. Notice how the body is feeling. All right, let's take one more breath. So take a nice deep breath in, fill up all the way, breathe all the way up into your collarbones, into the throat. And then once you're at the top, hold for a moment and then open the mouth and then just let the breath sigh out the mouth. I get kind of jello-y for a moment. All right, and then if the eyes are closed, if you want to, go ahead and open the eyes nice and slowly. All right, and welcome back, everyone. Yes, I'm excited for this episode. I'm excited just to mostly listen to Ben tell these stories. So Ben, just go for it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for that wonderful meditation, man. And just to do a quick recap, but I really encourage Nate and I really encourage going back and listening to episode 10 too, because it just will all go together with this. And episode 9. We're on episode 11. So episode 9, I talked about the mobster and the witch, and both taught me a lot. And going back into what the witch taught me of just being confident and being true to myself and what I believed in and what I knew was right. And the pirate energy popped up literally like a week after the witch. And it kind of just came out of nowhere. And I had a spiritual teacher of mine just say all of a sudden, kind of similar to the witch, of, hey, there's a female energy here that wants you to go back to and understand. All of a sudden there's a pirate energy. And I was like, pirate, that's really cool. Let's figure out what's going on. So I dove into it like maybe like a week and a half, 2 weeks afterwards. So it was of the other past lives I've recovered, it was like the quickest one. Like it really wanted me to learn it like right away. And so that was cool. That was different. And I just kind of went after it and just jumped into it. So to jump ahead and, talk about it again, when I went into this time around, and I was, I went to my spiritual teacher, Brenda, who everyone got to listen to in episode 10, and that was an amazing experience. So she took me back, and we're going back in time a little bit. She's bringing me through my portals, doing all those different things, and I'm not going into too much details today about it because I've already talked about those details before. But what was really different this next time around is it just continuously has become easier to dive into those portals as I continuously learn how to do it. And what was really cool is when I walked through this time, I walked through a lot easier. And as soon as I walked in, it was like just really unique and different. And as I was walking in, I could feel the wind and like an ocean breeze, and I smelt the ocean. And that was really cool and really unique compared to other past lives that I had, that I could like smell it and like taste the salt. And then I looked out, and there was this old man on this cliff overlooking the water, and he was just staring at the water. So something told me, obviously, walk over there. And as I walked over there, I see this older man, in these like really old style looking like pajamas, and he's just sitting there on this cliff looking out into the water. Okay. And, something told me just kind of get closer. And as I got closer, like I kind of started seeing what was through his eyes. And so I'm just getting this tunnel vision of what's through his eyes. And as I'm looking through his eyes, he's looking just out in the water and just enjoying life. And he's just really calm and really peaceful. And then I realize what's happening is he's kind of daydreaming and seeing his life flash before his eyes a little bit. And he's looking out into the water, and then all of a sudden, through this tunnel vision, he is on this big boat. And I'm on this big boat now, like I've become him. And as I'm on this big boat, I'm like getting these directions from this captain, you could say, and I'm looking down and I'm like in this pirate stuff. I was a pirate. Okay? Like, what the fuck? I'm a pirate. So, I'm like taking orders from the captain and like, doing whatever you would do on a boat and like casting sails and doing those things. And I was a lot younger. I was like, maybe if I was going to put a number on it, I was like 15, 16.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And I was having a blast doing this stuff. Like, I was so full of life. Everything was so cool to me. And my favorite thing to do is when I was done, I would just sit and like just look out in the water and just be calm, like looking at the water. So like the tunnel vision continues, and it's showing me the life of being like a pirate. And, this life was raised basically on the boat. I don't know the exact history of everything. It didn't show me every little detail that some of the other past lives did of like childhood and everything like that. But I got the sense that I was basically raised on the boat. So like, that's like all I knew was like being raised on the boat. And like, I would be really curious that, I was being shown what my life was like. And I was always really curious when we would dock somewhere and like be out like of like regular life, and like there was villages and like people. It was always really weird and interesting to me of like these people like living life and like not on the water. Like I thought that was really unique and weird. And like people were reading books and I didn't know how to read. So like that was something that was like really unique to me of like, oh, how do I know to read? And like people that were, I would try to read when I was younger, and like the pirates that were my friends or my father figures, brothers, like wouldn't let me. Like they would say I don't need that stuff. So it was basically like a really cultish kind of thing of this is your only life. And I always knew like I wanted something more. I wanted something different. And also they started showing me too, the older I got, the more of a pirate I became. And like you would go into villages and you would rob people and do really bad things to people. And, I was raised to do that and I didn't know any better, but I always knew it was like wrong. So finally one day, like I had these big dreams of just my big dream was having a simple life in that lifetime. And to pause and go back to of kind of what my life was, what I was going through during my life. Cause I said, between the witch and the pirate, it was really quick. But in between that time, I was having issues with like my confidence, some self-esteem issues, and also kind of just accepting of where I was at in life. And, everyone, I'm guilty of it. We all want this extraordinary life. We always want this grand life. And to go back to this past life, all he wanted was a simple life. And he didn't want to be a bad person. And all he wanted was to live in a village, have a family, have a normal life. That's all he wanted. He wanted a normal job, normal life. So
what you're saying here, it's just like so similar to us growing up in society. Yeah. And like, we grow up in society and that's all we know, right? And we're taught certain things, about like, money, jobs, and the relationships, and we're told that money can't buy happiness, but nobody actually believes that. So, people actually think that money does buy happiness. And then with you, as a pirate, it's like, even though this was the only life that you knew, that you knew deep down that like, that this wasn't it, right? That there's like something like the more meaningful or more special. And like, it also makes me think about how the people who are like, maybe in like really, really backwards or like the really violent organizations, I'm just thinking of like, a Nazi, the back in World War II Germany. And it's like, a lot of people in there, maybe they just like that didn't know any better. Like they didn't have like, this overall picture of what was happening. And they actually thought that what they were doing was like, well, yeah, this is what my leader, who saved us out of this horrible place, is telling me to do. But I'm willing to bet that still everyone in those situations, like we'll just stick with the Nazi, that they really actually did feel something deep down that, I don't know, it just isn't right, but maybe they weren't brave enough to act on it.
Right. And, that's important that you said that. I'm glad that you interjected there and said that, because that's important to understand is that, I didn't know any different, and I still had this feeling of this isn't right. And I went, and it was really brave of me. What I ended up doing is I planned out like my escape, because this life, like you couldn't leave it. You weren't allowed to leave it. So I had to plan out my escape, and I escaped this life. And I escaped this life to go have a simple life. And, I remember like dreaming with like, I would dream with like my pirate buddies, right? So my friends on the boat. And I would say like, don't you want to like have a simple life here and there? And their responses would always be, but then we can't have treasure and drink when we want, and do what we want, right? So that's what they wanted to do. And that's what they were raised to do. And so I planned this escape and snuck away and went off to have a normal, simple life. And I went to this random little village, hid myself, and started a normal job. I was a blacksmith, which obviously is not like, I mean, it's totally obvious, like a pirate becomes a blacksmith. Like, is this a movie? Like, what's going on, right? So I had this normal job, normal life. I met a normal, beautiful girl, fell in love, had this normal, amazing, simple life. But that person that had this normal, simple life that they always wanted had all these demons and what you would basically call like PTSD from living the pirate life before, and was always scared all the time that, you know, he was a pirate, so he was wanted by like regular law people, sheriffs or whatever it was at the time. And also he was wanted by his pirate friends because he also too, and this makes the story better later on, he knew things of like where treasure was and how to find certain things that they wanted to know. So for him to leave was a big deal because to them, he left and he was like going to go steal the treasure and take their treasure and run off, right? That's what they thought. But what I thought was really unique about this life is that he literally left to go have a simple life and he never went to try to find that treasure. He didn't care. He could have went and found that treasure, taken it, had a more extraordinary life, but he didn't do that. He didn't want to do that. He also knew by doing that would make them try to find him more.
Yeah, right. He'd be like, they're really deep in trouble.
Right. So has a simple life, but always has these demons to deal with. Has this daughter with his wife, and that becomes like his world, his life. And she grows up, and he grows up with her, I would say. And as she's growing up, he always would tell her these stories, these extravagant stories of being a pirate and what he would do. And it'd always be like their little secrets. Like he would say, you can't say this to anyone. So that's like how we got it out. And it was this really cool, unique moment because I'm seeing this vision and it's just this guy who's full of life. And he's over talking to this little girl about
who's also
like
full of life.
Yeah, who's full of life. And like she's just so like to her, he was the coolest person ever, right? And he's sitting there and he's telling all these stories and like it's their little secret forever, right? So as he gets older too, he kind of becomes like a legend like in the little village that he's in. And so he would tell these stories that he would say were fake stories, but they were stories about his life.
Wow.
So his favorite thing to do would like be tell stories to all these kids like in the village. And like everyone knew who her dad was because he was like famous in the village, right? So there was even a point where like some people figured out who he was, but they all kept it secret because they figured out that he was such like a loving guy and he didn't mean any harm, that they like kept it a secret. So it was really cool and unique of like seeing how things were unfolding for this guy of like, you know, he was a bad person, but in his core, in his heart, he wasn't a bad person.
So I want to say he did bad things, but he's not a bad person.
Yes.
And that's so important to remember for everyone.
Yes.
There's not the person just doing bad things, you know, or doing things that are like harmful, but they themselves, like, you know, let's not demonize the person just because, you know, of what they do, you know, or who they support or anything like that.
Right. And this was important to me, and to pause and go into what else was going on in my current life. I was kind of fighting some of those demons. I was coming out of being an addict, and I was having, you know, starting my life of being in recovery. And there was, you know, feelings of, you know, I was bad for doing stuff that I wasn't a pirate, but I didn't feel good about things that I did, and I was dealing with those issues, and having to see this and seeing that it was okay was really important to me in my life. So to jump back into this movie, and this is when it kind of becomes a movie, is, you know, I'm living my regular life, and all of a sudden one day in my home, my old pirate buddies are there waiting for me, and they found me, and they found where I was at, and they kidnapped me, they kidnapped my family, and they took me away, and I had to show them, like, they made me show them where the treasure was. And like, as I'm saying that, I'm just cracking up of just these circumstances that happen. And as I'm seeing this, I'm like, what the fuck is going on, right? So I basically made a deal with them that I will show them, don't touch my family, just let them be. I'll show them where everything's at. They can take anything they want. So I gave in, and I didn't put up a fight at all. And I showed them where everything was. And they ended up, like, they beat the piss out of me, left me bloody, like, could have easily just been dead. And they called me, like, they were calling me names and calling me weak because, like, I just gave in and showed them where the treasure was. But it was really beautiful because I only just did that because I wanted my family to be safe. So it was just to, you know, I didn't care about my life. I wanted my family to be safe. So they ended up taking off because all they wanted was their treasure. And they, like, left me at this random place, like, bloody, and probably thought I was dead. Somehow I survived and made it back to my family. And I ended up living out my life as just being a simple person living out my life. And what was really cool about it was, as soon as that happened, where they kidnapped me, I went through that. You know, they beat me up, did everything that I said there. As soon as that happened, and as soon as, like, they were gone, I had this release of just not having to worry about this anymore, and everything was okay. And it was also this, like, humble moment of, I wonder what would have happened, like, 20 years ago if I just showed them where everything was and then just took off. I probably wouldn't be holding on to that guilt for, like, years and years and years, right? So it's a good reminder for us that we hold on to these guilts for years and years and years, and we hide from things for years. And if we just take action and do something about it, it may not be the easiest situation to deal with, but eventually goes away.
Yeah, and I think that story is, like, such an awesome analogy of the healing process.
Right.
It's like, okay, it's this thing you're avoiding and you don't want to go into because you think it's going to be difficult and challenging. And it is, right? Yeah, and you go and you face it and you get, like, knocked around, you know, like, as you go and, like, that you face traumas and, like, you know, you kind of stir up those old emotions. Like, it doesn't feel good, you know? Like, I remember, at the start of the shelter in place, that my family was going through, like, you know, a lot of emotional turbulence because we're all together and we're all together all the time. And so, like, I was working with one of my teachers who is, like, a healer, you know, and then he does a lot that with me was doing, like, a lot of psychosomatic therapy, and, like, a lot of stuff was coming up with my parents. And, like, you know, as we were doing the therapy, I found that, like, after the sessions, I'd be so resentful towards my parents. It was like, what the fuck is happening right now? It's like making things worse. But then, like, you know, after I went through all that stuff, I saw it's, you know, I needed to have that stuff come up and surface, and then, like, to really be with it consciously and accept it. And just like you said, that you didn't put up a fight, right? And you got kicked around, you got all bloodied up, and you didn't put up a fight, you know, and then they left. And then, of course, you know, after that, you still feel all that stuff from being kicked around. But then, you know, after you start to feel better and you gain more strength, then it's like, whew, this huge release. And now, like, you know, my relationship with my parents is better than it ever has been before. But I had to go through, like, you know, going into that stuff, letting it surface, and it caused more problems between me and them also at the time. But in the long run, it definitely made things like smoother.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you. And that's what this life had to go through too. And it was just different circumstances that we all go through different circumstances.
Yeah.
And no matter what, and that's the thing to realize is no matter what, spirit forces ourselves to heal. And whether it be cramming your family into one location or getting the shit kicked out of you by a bunch of pirates, no matter what, you face it or they will make you face it.
Yeah. So spirit doesn't force you to do anything, but they definitely make you face it. And then it's your choice. You can resist
Right,
it
exactly.
and put up a fight as much as you want, and you can make yourself suffer, but they always give you the opportunity to make things right.
Right. Yeah, that's a good
So by
point.
they, I
Thank
mean
you for saying
spirit.
that. Right, exactly. So to jump back in here, I lived out, my normal, simple, perfect life. And I got really old and I died really old. And what was really cool is, as I got older, I would continue to tell more stories and they became like legends around the village. And like, I would always, once a week I would get together and like, go near the beach and all these kiddos would be around me and I would be telling them stories. And it was like this really cool and unique thing. Now, another thing that, and this kind of helps the story end and it's really cool is because, I mentioned earlier that the biggest thing that I always wanted to do was I wanted to read, but I never had the time to actually learn how to read. And it was really important for me when my daughter was growing up at the time that she learned how to read and write and take care of herself. And I made sure that she did. But I still barely could read by the time I was really old. So I had this really cool, unique moment when I was really, really old where she walked up to me and she handed me this book. And she wrote a book about my life. And it was called like she handed it to me and like I had this moment of like looking down and seeing this book and it was called The Life of a Pirate. And I remember just like crying with her of like, cause I always wanted to write and read and tell things, but I was good at telling the stories, but I was never good at writing them down. And so she wrote it in a book and like sold it as a book too. And it was really, really cool and special and unique for like both of us. It was this beautiful moment. And it was also really important to me too, because I was going through at the time in my real life, I was really finally accepting, and we talked about this too, you can go back to episode 2, I was really finally accepting that I was very dyslexic and I don't necessarily read the right way or write the right way. It takes me longer to do everything. And it's still okay. I just do it in different and unique ways. Just like, it's like spirit just does things for you. Even though he couldn't write down all his stories, his daughter ended up doing for him. And I thought that was really cool. And it was really unique for me to see that it doesn't matter how it gets done. It doesn't matter if it's the way that it's the way you're supposed to do it by society's standards. Mm-hmm. Just do it. Just find a way to get it done. And that was a really cool healing moment for me to see that and understand that. And it's also part of my life too, because one thing that I will do at some point, and I keep doing it little by little every day, is I am writing books. I am doing those things. It's taking me a long time to do it, but that's okay. And I feel like I'm writing the book every single day of my life anyway. So.
No, I love that story. It's like a perfect analogy of teamwork and how it's, like they're working with a team. So not one person can just do everything. So we're all better at different things. And like you said, the life is a mystery and it like works in mysterious ways. And while like he always wanted to like read and write, and like it never worked out for him, he did the best that he could, and that he really took care of his daughter, and he really made sure that she had the opportunity, to learn and read and write. And then because he put that energy out in there, then like, it came back to him, and he was like gifted this like amazing cooperation, or amazing collaboration to make this book of his life. So
Right.
cool.
Yeah, very, very cool, and super beautiful moment. So to wrap it up and wrap up the simple life, when I first came into the portal, I saw this man sitting on this cliff, and that man was me. So I ended up being that old man again on the cliff, and realizing that what I was seeing was my life flashing before my eyes. And, this person was about to die, and he was passing away. And how he passed away was simply being on the beach, looking out of the water. Because remember, I mentioned his favorite thing to do when he was a pirate was just sit out and look on the water. And he was completely at peace, and he ended up passing away right next to the beach. And, I saw him pass away. I kind of felt him pass away. And it was really beautiful is the best way to say it, of how calm and simple it was. And like I say, we think we're going to have these extraordinary lives. We think we need to have these extraordinary lives. But it's the simple things that are honestly the most beautiful and the most calming too. So that's how that past life ended. And yeah, it was really, really cool and unique. You have anything you want to add there, Nate?
Yeah. That's, yeah, being simple, is being really powerful. And we said that I said that time and time again, but like, it's just really nice to just keep on reaffirming that. Yeah, and also I think that the simplest things are like that turn out to be the most joyful things. They're always looking for this like, the big moment. But like, if you just were like, to close your eyes and just like think back, what's one of the most like tender, joyful, sweet moments of your whole life? It might be just something so random that you haven't thought about for a long time, and it was like, this is just like there's like an in-between moment, that I didn't really give much thought to, but such a great moment. And then like, with this whole the whole story with the pirate, I really love how it's like, to make peace with the past, in order to be able to like live to live peacefully in the present. And then of course, if you're peaceful in the present, then the future, has a chance to be peaceful too. And what I was thinking about, I was this year 2020, and right now, it's the beginning of November. And of course people just like, they love to put things down, and I hear people say all the time, oh man, I just can't wait till this year is over. Oh, this year was horrible. Oh, this year sucked. And, 2021 has a much better chance to be like, that'd be better, quote unquote, than this year. If you can like look back to 2020 with like eyes of appreciation and gratitude from like learning what happened, from learning from what happened, and to actually like to look and see that what happened served you in a good way. And then like, if we can, because like, as you move forward, you have to step off of something, and you can kind of say your past, is what you're stepping off of. And if you don't respect your past, and if you haven't learned from your past, and if you're trying to get the hell away from your past, it's kind of like you're taking like a really fast step off of like a very unsolid, the very unsolid foundation, and you're just gonna like sink and stumble as you step forward. So I think like really, really like, what's the word? The reflecting on the past that really seeing why it happened and what good it served us. I mean, the future has such a better chance, of being how we want it to be. So that's a great message.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. And that's perfect because it kind of helps me wrap into also, so these two past lives so the witch and the pirate were so close to each other, and the healing that kind of was happening within me during that time, I was going through a lot afterwards of just processing everything, processing the confidence I didn't have because I was dyslexic, processing my past, processing healing everything. And both those energies, by looking at the past and looking at those past lives, both those stories, bringing those together was really unique and special for me. And it helped me realize I need to bring that energy into this life and move past these things and bring in more confidence and bring in more love and bring in, more happiness and, live my life as just being as the pirate, of just being full of life, of literally being so happy that you're going to be a blacksmith, that literally you're so happy to go tell stories to kids, literally absolutely full of life over the simplest things. And that was really beautiful and special for me. And it really kicked me into gear of, working on adding to my career, adding to my life, adding to things that I just wanted to do. It wasn't that I had to do anything. It was just that I wanted to do them because it gave me joy. It gave me joy going after it, wanting to do it. And this next life that I'm going to talk about propelled me forward.
Yeah, and just one thing about what you said there about wanting to or have to.
Yeah.
It's such a state changer, I want to say. Like, if you want to change your state, then just say, I want to do this. Even if it's something you don't really want to do, if it's like, there was like a chore or something that's inconvenient, just be like, wait, I want to do this. And then it'll just totally change your state.
And, it also is that you get to do this.
Yes.
And that's what I say too. And I'm glad you said that there because it goes into our mindset coaching philosophies here, right?
Yeah.
Is that, I don't want to cook, but I get to cook. I don't want to go to work, but I get to go to work. Because both those things right there, and I've said this before in the podcast, not everyone has food. Not everyone has a job. Stop thinking that you deserve better with something and enjoy what you have. And if you want something better, enjoy what you have while you go after something better.
Yes.
Because you can do many things. You can do multiple things. It's going to be okay. It may take you longer, but that's okay. It may take you longer the fact that you've always wanted to read and write a book, and you may never even do it. But then one day your friend's going to give you a book about you. You don't know how things are going to work out. Enjoy it. And going into this next life, this was a big confidence booster for me. And I mentioned before in the last episode of where I recapped everything that when I first did my first past life of the mobster, 2 other past lives jumped forward to me, but told me that I wasn't ready to see them. And one of those was the Egyptian, and the other one was the monk. Now, the monk, I'll let everyone know, that'll be one of our next episodes, and it will be the whole podcast because he is really freaking cool and deserves a whole podcast. But the Egyptian I will get into right now because I forget how long I waited to dive into the past life of the Egyptian, so I don't have the exact timetable on that. But if I was thinking about it, if I was going to put a timetable on it, it wasn't more than a month that I jumped into the Egyptian life. And I was really called to do it, like really called to figure out what, because remember I saw it once before. What was that about? I feel like I have, I was been doing the energy work. I felt like I could harness it. I felt like I could see it now. So I contacted Brenda. I said, hey, I think I'm ready to do this. Let's figure it out. So we jumped into it, went through the portal. And this time around, it was even quicker, I feel like. And as I jumped in, what was really, really different this time is because remember, every time so far, I went and I found the past life. So I found the witch in the forest. I found the pirate, and I had to walk over to him on the cliff. Now this one, as soon as I woke up and was in the past life, I was the past life, and I was on this balcony, and I was in fucking Egypt on this balcony, and I was looking out, and I could see like pyramids and like water and all these palm trees, and it was literally so fucking cool of what I saw, and like everything was like specially made and like just like really freaking cool. And I like was talking to somebody, so I listened to this voice talking to me, and it was my current the energy felt like it didn't exactly look like the person. We don't exactly look like anyone, but the energy sounded like and felt like my wife was talking to me. And it was like, the best way to describe it too is, I don't know if this past life was a pharaoh, was a prince, I don't exactly know, but whoever this past life was in some sort of royalty. And the best way to describe it that I say is, he's the prince, and I call my wife the princess because I still call her my princess now. And so I was talking to my wife, and I was really nervous. This past life was really, really nervous, and he was pacing back and forth and, you know, really anxious. And she's reminding him, like, you've done this a million times. I don't know why you're so nervous. I don't know why you feel the way you do. You're going to do great. And just kind of completely, like, giving me a pep talk, right? And then I, like, walked into my room at the time, and, like, I, like, pulled over these drapes, and, like, I walked in, and I was still pacing back and forth, and like there was this what looked like a fireplace, and it was this big mantle, and it was all made of gold. Like everything was like gold. It was insane how much gold there was, and like just absolute like riches all around me. It's the best way to say it, right? So I walk in this room, and like there's all these servants and people like running around and like helping me like get dressed up and helping me like get ready for what like feels like this big event. Okay. And like I have this, you know, to pause of like what this life is. Like I said, whatever it was royalty. Everything was perfect. Everything was unique. But what I thought, and what Spirit really wanted to show me of what was so cool about this life, is that I wasn't this like crazy dictator ruler. Everyone that was working for me or serving me loved to do it because they loved how I treated them. And I treated everyone exactly how they should be treated. And like I acted like I was on the level of everyone else. I didn't act like I was royalty. I acted like nobody was above me, and that everyone was more special than me is the best way to say it. So everyone loved helping me, running around, and you could just feel that energy. And everyone was really excited for what was happening and going on. So, you know, I'm walking around, I'm pacing, it's almost time, and you know, they get me ready to go, and then I get put in this other room, and they say, okay, like, you know, you got about 5 more minutes, get ready. And there's this big room, and also to talk about, you know, what else was around, and like I talked about the golden like mantle and like what looked like a fireplace. There's all these really extravagant rugs on the ground. And so I go into this other room, and there's this other balcony, and I can hear like roars of like people. Like there's like a big crowd behind that curtain of the next balcony. So they say, okay, you're getting ready. You can go out whenever you're ready. So my wife walks out first and everyone's yelling, and she looks absolutely gorgeous in her Egyptian get-ups. And then I walk out and everyone's cheering and yelling. And I make this like crazy extravagant speech. And I'm like firing everyone up. And then Brenda at the time's like guiding me. She goes, go out to like, you know, jump around into like what the crowd's feeling. And so like I jumped out and I became like a little boy. And the boy was like, oh my God, he's such an amazing leader. I love listening to him. Like, this is amazing. Like you could feel the energy of that, right? And then like I jumped over and there was this like this, the best way to describe it is he was a soldier. And the soldier was like really excited to hear from me and was really happy to be led by me. And then I jumped back to me and I was like finishing the speech and like, you know, the gestures behind me and how I was talking to the crowd. It was like just really, really cool is the best way to say it. And really like, you know, the confidence in this person was just absolutely ridiculously cool and really special and unique. And like I said, the most unique thing about him is, you know, as I was going to that crowd, you know, the little boy, the soldier, everyone felt like this person wasn't acting like they were above anyone. And even though he was in royalty, he felt like he was just like everyone else. But he just carried himself different with how he talked and how he led. And it really showed me, you know, I say that because this life, what they really wanted me to see is how you can be a good leader, but still let people follow you and be a follower at the same time and listen to what other people are saying and be on everyone's same level. And that was something I really needed to like hear at the time to help me with my confidence and other issues that I was getting past, right? Of, you know, even when you have this extraordinary life, even when you are this extraordinary person, if you don't treat people in a loving way and don't act like, you know, and it's true, we all are one. We all are all the same. If we don't act that way, then nobody's going to really listen. Nobody's going to care. And so I wrapped up the speech, and the last thing that I'll say that this that Spirit wanted me to show is how much stress this person went through to have the speeches, to lead what he was leading, to do what he was doing. He put himself through stress every single day. And it was also, you know, to go back to, you know, what my wife at the time was saying. She was saying, you know, you always do this. You're always anxious. There's no reason to be. So this person, even though they made these good speeches, even though they were a good leader, they were really, really human. And he had a lot of stresses and carried a lot on him. So the last thing Spirit wanted to show me about this life is this person died really young. And they died young and what I got in the sense that it was because of how much stress he was under, you know, he got sick and he didn't live a long life. He lived a pretty short life. If I was going to put a number on it, he died before he was 40. And the coolest thing about it, though, is even though he lived a short life, he touched a lot of people. And, you know, all those people he took care of, they were really hurt and upset when he did die because he put more energy to take care of everyone else, but he never took care of himself. And I think that's important. An important message for everyone is, you know, we've talked about self-care a little bit. You know, this person didn't know what self-care was. And, you know, stress can kill. Stress is not a good thing. And it was really important for me to see that too of what was else going on in my current life, because I was finding ways to get rid of stress and not be under stress and be more calm and meditate more and do different things. around reducing stress. And so it was a really big wake-up call for me that, hey, even though you want this extraordinary life, you want to do these things, if you don't take care of yourself, it's not even worth it. That's why they say, health and wealth are the most important things, because you can't enjoy your wealth without your health. So that's kind of how that past life wrapped up. And Nate, there's a couple other things I'll say with that, but Nate, do you want to add anything in there?
Yeah. I think that also maybe the truest wealth is your health. And I think it's, interesting how the way that you were talking about his life, it reminds me of just maybe most celebrities that we look at celebrities and we're like, oh my God, it'd be so great to be them. Oh, their life must be so easy, all this and that, just because, they have all this fame and attention and they have all this money and things. But man, they could be a nervous wreck, on the inside, even if they're treating other people with respect, which it's so cool that this guy was able to do that, even though inside he obviously, maybe he was confident in some ways, but it sounds like he had a lot of deep insecurities about himself. And maybe he just pushed through it because that for some reason he was able to do that. But it was killing him inside. And what it was making me think of too is how we can that we can do things out of fear. It is possible. That people do the really, really great things, whether it's harmful or beneficial for society. People have done really great things that impact the world tremendously. Then again, whether good or bad, out of a place of fear. And it takes a toll on them, and it ends up they're maybe not making as lasting of an impact. And what I've been thinking lately about acting out of fear and then acting out of love or presence is that when you're in a state of fear, even if you're going after something that you really, really want, your dream, if you're acting out of fear, there's this sense that we have to do something right now. Oh my God, I gotta do it now. I gotta do it now, otherwise it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna be okay. Because fear, if you just go to the biological influence, of that, the reaction that has on us, it's if you're in survival mode and if the fear thing kicks in, then it means you have to take care of something right now. Otherwise you might die. So if we're taking the undertones of fear into our life, then we're in a constant state of, I got to do it now. I have to do it now. It can't wait. It can't wait. And this could be if you're just having a conversation with somebody who's not in support of the same political party as you, for example, and you have to change their mind right now. You have to do something about it right now, because otherwise the world's going to come to an end. But if we're just in a more state of peace, presence, and love, maybe we realize that we don't have to do it right now, immediately, this moment. And we can just sit back and maybe see it from definitely a broader perspective, and then act from a place of contentment, which is in this moment I'm okay, I'm at peace. And like you said before, then I can move on, and move forward and create change in a much more relaxed way. And there's so much power in being relaxed. And one more thing I want to say about being a good leader that you were talking about is this is also kind of the same thing. It's people lead out of fear, for sure. Most people that are in the political system, at least in this country, are leading out of fear, and they're trying to make you afraid in order to follow them. But the best leaders that I've been in contact with, and I think about coaches, or some of my teachers, they're very supportive, of me, and the, like of everyone who they were leading, and they cared about each person, and like, so in that way, it made us want to follow them. It's not that we felt we had to follow them because something bad was going to happen if we didn't follow them. We wanted to follow them. So it's like there's such a stronger connection there, and like it reminded me of, like, I was helping one of my teachers out, that he was like doing a retreat, and like I was going to assist him, and like it was just him doing the retreat, like just him, and then like like two other people were were there to help him do things, and like I was getting kind of like a little bit of a cold, that my back was super sore, and he asked me how I was feeling, and I told him that. He just gave me a massage on my back. It's like, oh my God, thank you so much. And he's leading this retreat. I'm his assistant, and I'm feeling like really not very good at all, and my back is killing me. And he gave me a massage, and I was thinking like, wow, the night before Jesus was crucified, did he not massage and clean his disciples' feet? Jesus was massaging his disciples' feet the night before he was crucified, because he's a great leader.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And yeah, that's definitely something, that's really what that energy in that past life was doing. And, a lot of these great leaders, they do die young. Jesus died young. And because they take the energy of taking care of everyone else, right? But it's really unique and special.
It's not draining to truly take care of somebody else, because Jesus wasn't drained. Jesus
Correct.
was killed by unconscious and evil, people who, were totally mistaken what life really was.
Yeah.
And the same with my teacher, that he wasn't draining himself by taking care of me. He was like the truly serving me, and in that he was gaining energy.
Correct. And yeah, not everyone obviously is doing that. This particular past life for me, he was overly draining himself to make sure everyone was taken care of, and that was really interesting to me, and a good wake up call. And I like what you're saying there, Nate, about we think we need to be this great leader and do it a certain way, but if we also are a follower and a leader, those are the best leaders. And we always forget that. And so going back to, wrapping up this past life, I think this one's interesting that, I was thinking about it, as far as details, as far as, the life, it's pretty short and sweet of what this person did. And you could say, if I was going to say, of all the past lives, whoever's the most successful of the past lives I've recovered, it definitely was this guy. But it's the one that I say the quickest and go through in the quickest way, because it was, how do I want to say this? The messages weren't about his success. The messages were how he led, how he took care of people, and bringing that energy for me into the present. And also, what was really unique is, remember, if I go back to the first past life recovery where I saw 3 of them, I worked with the mobster at that time, but then they showed me the Egyptian and the Egyptian and the monk. And both of those energies said, you're not ready to see this yet. And what really hit me after I was, reflecting and meditating, what really hit me is that if I saw the Egyptian past life first, I would have been so in my ego of what that person was doing. And, oh, I was in royalty and I was this and I was that. I would have been so in my ego at the time that I would have missed what the real messages were. So it makes complete sense. And this is just, divine timing and divine purpose of how Spirit showed me the past lives for me to see this one now, realizing that that's not even my favorite one. It's cool. But if I was going to say favorites, I love the witch and I love the pirate. And the last one we'll end up talking about in the next episode is the monk. The monk's one of my favorites too. All of which had the most simplest of lives. And I would have completely missed the messages if I saw that one first. So it's really cool to me that Spirit straight up was like, you're not going to see this yet because you're not ready for it. And you're not ready for it because I had to go through everything else I was going through in my life to really understand that. And I thought that was the most beautiful message that I got from it of, everything happens for a reason, and we are right on track. We're right on time. And even though we want to have these extraordinary lives and we want all these things and we want it now, you're not getting it. You're not supposed to get it yet. And it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. So that was the most beautiful message that I got from it. And Nate, you have anything you want to add to that?
But maybe just that's something really quick about that is trusting in the timing of things. That's such a comforting thing to remember. It's it's happening right on time. I'm not late. I'm not early. All that's happening right now is as it should be. So, I just kind of give up a little bit of control and kind of that kind of increase my trust, in something outside of me that I'm not the smartest person ever in the world. And then, let's just kind of be here for the ride.
Yes. Be here for the ride. Well, the last aha moment that I'll talk about, and I think one of the coolest things that happened of these different past life recoveries that I'm talking about, what's really cool about the Egyptian that I'll mention, and, personal stuff, I don't talk too much about every little personal detail in my life, but I'm really in a loving, great relationship with my beautiful wife currently in this life. And the reason why I bring that up is, we always talk about, me and her always talk about how we are old souls and we are soulmates. And I'm really, really proud of the relationship that we do have. Now, with that being said, remember I mentioned that when I first saw this past life, I was talking to my wife, and what felt like, it didn't necessarily look like, but what felt like and what sounded like my wife's energy. And then after I got done with this, I confirmed with Brenda at the time, hey, was that my wife? Yes, that was your wife's energy. So
wow.
As I'm talking about, I go over all my past lives with my wife and we chat all the time about everything. And as I'm talking to her about it, I say it, and we both just got major goosebumps when we were saying it and talking about it of holy shit, this is crazy. Then we both remembered literally at the same time that when we first started dating, our first you have when you start dating, when you have these little dates and then you end up having the big date where you go on a day trip. Okay. And our first day trip, we went to an Egyptian museum together because we both love history. We're both big history geeks. And we had this comment, as talking in the first couple dates, we're talking about things. We love old things and Egyptian things. And we decided, hey, let's go check out. There's, we live in the Bay Area, and in San Jose, there's an Egyptian museum. It's really cool if you haven't checked it out before. And so we ended up going to this Egyptian museum on our first real date together. And we had, no clue about this past life, had no clue about we were just starting out then to really get into, spiritual healing and energy work. You know, we both, you know, always had that calling to it. And later on in other podcasts, I'm sure I'll talk about that more, about both of our callings. But that, when we had this moment together of like, wow, that really happened, like, and we went there and didn't even know it, that's the kind of shit that I just say, you can't make that shit up. And you can't, like, you know, people that want to say, oh, you know, I don't know if past lives are real, or I don't know if, you know, that's true, you know, that's just your belief, man. But honestly, I'm just going to say that's the kind of shit you just can't make that up. That is just too cool, too unique. And I think that really wraps up that past life really good.
You know, as we start to like, you know, open our minds, you know, to do things different, and like to let go of control, you know, and trust in that there's like this greater organization of things, then, like, you know, way more coincidences start to happen. And then you realize, oh wait, these are not coincidences. These are just like my life being like, you know, in more harmony with the greater power of all that kind of stuff. And then life just gets more and more interesting, and it keeps on happening, and it keeps on, you'll be like, what? No way. It keeps on like surprising you. And yeah, it's such a mystery, and the mystery is fun. You know, it's fun not knowing, actually.
Right. And it's fun. That's the thing. It's fun not knowing, and it's fun discovering. And we all are one. We are all one. We are one being, and we are all connected. And you know, that story of me and my wife, I think it's a good reminder to everyone that everyone you come into contact with, every single person is special for a reason, and they're showing up for a reason, and they're showing up as a lesson that you may not have learned. They're showing up as an old soul that you need to remember. Every single thing is connected, is special, is meant to be. And even though you may think that this world around you is, you know, it's crazy, it's wacky, there's all these different things going on, you're here for a reason. And so if you're here for a reason, enjoy every relationship that comes into your life, every new friend, every new coworker, everything, because it all is here to serve you. And even though it may seem like every coworker, I hate Bob in the office, he's a piece of shit, and he's the most annoying guy to deal with. It doesn't matter. Every single person, no matter what, is in your life for a reason. And things keep resurfacing the more that we don't heal, and the more that we don't embrace, because spirit loves to be a little pesky, annoying little brother or sister that will put things back at you over and over and over again. And just enjoy the moments, and enjoy how unique it really is.
Yeah, no, this is so perfect, because like, I just heard this little story yesterday. And yeah, like, you know, basically my viewpoint is that like everything that happens in the world, it's just that is helping you be able to love more. Because how do you build your ability to love? By loving things, people, and situations that are difficult to love. You don't increase your love by loving what's easy to love. You increase your love by loving what's difficult to love. And there was this awesome story that I just heard yesterday, and it was this family, you know, it's a mother, the mother or father, and like a 6-year-old son, and they have this old dog, you know, who's sick and has cancer, and they take him to the vet, and the vet says that we should really put him down, you know, and we can come to your house and do it. And they're like, okay, cool. And the mother and father were like, that we'd like our son to watch this, you know, because we think that it'd be a valuable lesson for him to see. You know, and so they're at the house, and the vet is there, you know, and he's about to put the euthanasia, you know, in the dog, you know, and the kid is just like so calm, you know, and the kid is just like there with the dog, you know, and petting the dog, and the doctor's thinking, Like, I wonder if he understands what's happening right now, or what's about to happen. And they do it, and the dog slowly, dies. And the kid just like, kept on being very calm and was just like, they're not really reacting, in the way that the adults, thought. Then so afterwards, the adults were talking and they're like, man, it's so sad that animals don't live for as long as humans, and they're talking about why that is. And the kid says something and he goes, I know why. And all the adults were like, what is he going to say right now? And the kid was like, so we're here. So basically the only reason we're here is to be able to love everyone, right? And he's like, dogs already know how to do that, so they don't need to live as long as us. Such a cool story. It's like they're here, they're loving, they don't need to spend like all these decades figuring it out. Us, on the other hand,
Right.
It takes us a little bit more time to figure it out, but we are figuring it out.
Right. And I think that's important. And I think this is a good last thing to say about, the here, the now, what we're dealing with, right? Obviously, I don't know when you're going to listen to this podcast, but we are in November. It's,
It's November 6th, 2020. They're counting all the votes.
They're counting all the votes. It's November 6th, 2020. And it's wacky. It's weird. We don't know what's happening, right? Okay. And here's what I'm going to say. I actually was doing a meditation the other day, and I cracked up at everything going on. And there's two things I really realized. We are being challenged as a society because we don't love one another. And until we really understand that, the lessons are going to keep coming our way. And I don't care what side you believe in. It honestly, none of that really matters to me. What matters is that we care about one another. And in order to have this heal and have things be okay, we're going to have to realize that. And spoiler alert of what could happen in 6 months, a year, 5 years, I don't know. Eventually, people will have to come together for the common good. Somehow, some way. It always happens in history. And I also laugh to myself because everyone's, I'm going to be honest with it, everyone. I feel the stresses just like everyone else. But I crack up at the fact of we are a part of history. This is really cool. Our generation before this, we were called like, the lost generation, the generation of being on the internet and social media, and we never really do anything, right? Guess what?
We're waking up.
We're waking up. We're going to be a part of history. And that's why, the message of loving everyone has a purpose. Everyone in your life has a purpose. Everyone that you're running into has a purpose. They may be from a past life. They may be from your new life you're in right now. So stop yourself today. Take a breath and just realize that it's going to work out. It's going to work out however it's supposed to work out. And we have no real control of whatever is going to happen with that. And the control that we do have is to love ourselves and love everyone else around us.
Amen.
With that being said, Nate, let's wrap this up. I'm going to give it over to you to do a little meditation and close us out.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let's just go ahead and again, close the eyes if you want to close the eyes. If you are doing something, then just pay attention to your breath, or just put like a little more attention on all the movements that you're making. And let's just take some easy conscious breaths. And as Ben was talking there, I was reminded of a famous quote from Martin Luther King Jr. And he said that darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. And hatred cannot drive out hatred or hate, only love can do that. And what if we actually lived like that was true? What if we lived like the truth was true? And so, as you breathe here, and you do something really simple, then, you are experiencing the truth of who you are, which is not, a Democrat, it's not a Republican, it's not a man, it's not a woman, it's not a skin color, it's not a profession. You can't actually name the truth, but you can name everything that the truth is not. And so as we sit here and just simply breathe, it's a direct experience, although maybe just for a brief moment, of us forgetting all that stuff. We forget everything that we think we are. And then experiencing that part of us, only then can we maybe see that in another person, even if they're on the opposite side of the fence as us. We can then see past, right, all that they think that they are, and then just love them for who they truly are. And so just take 2 more breaths. All right, and then maybe just feel the heartbeat just for a couple more moments. And just feel the energy inside your body. And what's fueling our body right now, this intelligent energy that is completely outside the scope of our control. It's also in every single other person's body, every single animal, every plant, every little critter. And, on a deep level, we are all supported by the same energy. Maybe the ultimate leader, you can call it spirit, you can call it life, you can call it God. Unconditionally supportive. And giving us 1,000,001 chances. All right, and we'll finish this by taking 1 more deep breath. So take a nice big breath in. Fill all the way up, and then open the mouth, and then just sigh the breath out. All right, and then if you want to, just let the eyes slowly open. And once again, I just want to thank all of you for being here, for listening. I hope you had fun with this. I definitely had fun listening to Ben's stories. I think that maybe you've heard this before, but you're like a really great storyteller. So it's like that, in combination with you talking about your lessons and just these cool stories anyway, it's just like super entertaining. So thanks for sharing all that, Ben.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess I'm calling in the pirate energy of being the storyteller.
Yeah.
But I'll remind everyone with this. It doesn't matter if you're in a village telling stories all your life. If you were a blacksmith, if you were a prince and you lived in royalty, if you work at a grocery store, if you work at a big bank, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you go have fun and go enjoy your life and be calm and be at peace and just realize that everything's here for a reason and a purpose. So hope everyone enjoys the journey today, and sending you all lots of peace and lots of love.